All right, let's give Sandra a big round of applause.
I want to thank everybody in Wise Counsel. You guys have prayed me through this crazy journey of actually publishing something. I wrote the book in 3 months. It took me another 6 months to edit it and decide, all the details of publishing and praying. So it is here. I'm very excited and honored. The book is just about the reader being the hero in their success story, but the reader is also the villain in the story. And it's written in first person to renew the mind, and it just helps people get from point A to point B, right? No matter what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's business or personal. It's called Mission Impossible. Of course, the great I am is the superhero in the story, right? Amen. But when the I am and the great I am touches and agrees, it produces something great. So what we're going to be doing today is on transformational leadership. This is a very amazing tool, practical, on demand, at your leisure. You can do it while you're cooking. You can do it while you're driving. I binge watched it. There's 2 major trainings. I'm a nerd like that. I love this stuff. There's 2 major trainings. One is more practical professional development, and then the second one it's called Missing Link, and it kind of gives you I call it the iceberg, underlining reason why it works and how it works, right? Like the spiritual aspect of it. So you really only are paying for the transformational leadership training, and then you get this beautiful bonus of understanding the inside of how spiritually, how it's tied together. You're going to notice a lot of principles, biblical principles that ties to it. But this could be used at any major corporation owned by an atheist, a Satanist. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you think. The principles work. The principles are true. And it's amazing. The first video I'm going to show is just a 60-minute sound bite. It's not really words talking. You have to just read what's up there. It's going to give you a quick overview, and then we're going to watch a quick video from Ford Taylor himself. I've been graced to have dinner with this guy and meet with him and sit down with him and personally one-on-one Zoom calls with him and
get your picture taken with him 3 times?
Several times, yes. I have plenty of selfies with Ford Taylor. He's just a genuine, transparent, transformational leadership. Like, he lives this. And it inspires me to want to live as well. I'm glad I wrote my book before I met him, because it looks like I stole all of his content. We have such similar strategies and mindsets that there's only one Holy Spirit, right? There's only one Spirit of truth. So before we start, I want to just kind of show this to you. So I'm not here to train today. I'm only here to facilitate, to ask questions. And this process will go way smoother and a lot more fun if you guys ask a lot of questions and you guys participate as much as possible. So please, 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 I get excited about this stuff, and I promise you I'm just gonna facilitate and ask questions, okay? So, but before I get started, I'm gonna get this out of my system, so when we go through the transformational leadership, I won't have to say this in the middle. So again, my book and the training, what brings them together, it brings clarity on the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, and the relationship side. Ford teaches how most people are leaning on a continuum of being very either relational or transactional. The Marthas of the world, right? Versus the Marys. I'm like one of the Marys. Like, I just want to have fun and party and just giggle and learn you, right? Like, that's I prefer that. But the Lord is bringing balance to my life, and He's connected me to people that challenge me and bring me to touch and agree with the 2 facets, the lion and the lamb of who our Creator is. He's both relational and transactional, and Ford Taylor calls it relational. He created this word called relational, and it's the beautiful balance, right? It's a beautiful balance when the feminine, the masculine touch and agrees, right? And that way, there's no room for pride. When we realize, wait a minute, I'm going outside of the boundaries within myself. It's good to have someone that kind of pulls me back to get grounded, right? Rooted and grounded in something that's established. And that way I won't be like floating up and just fun and Peter Pan, never land, right? So you want to have both to touch and agree, and it takes you in this amazing upright direction of honor and legacy, right? That's what relational people are. That's what transformational leadership trains you, a balance between 2 good things, right? It's not yin and yang. It's two good things, and they both bring a side of the puzzle, like humility and authority. When these two things they produce something, when you let them come to a place of agreement, right? So we're gonna go into this, and I'm done. All right, and I want you guys to see how he brings a clarity and a focal point of core values, and from the core. From the ground up, he produces a culture, right? It's like he takes the cult out of culture and he uses core values to produce this beautiful, most high standard atmosphere that is not only, again, productive, but it's safe, right? It's healthy, right? And relationally. All right, so let's go ahead and play this. I don't know if you can read this. If there's a glare, it's only 60 seconds. And then we're going to hear from Ford directly. Learn how to set the foundation. Understand how others think. Build communication. Create new leaders. Train with Ford Taylor. On your own schedule. On any device. Anywhere in the world. Become the leader you aspire to be. Fantastic. So as you see, this encompasses a myriad of things that will develop you individually and corporately with your team. That's one of the reasons why I love it so much, is that no matter how many times I've done this training, and I've done it several times, I'm actually doing it 2 more times with his 2 top trainers, I'm learning, I'm challenged, I'm corrected, I'm humbled by it every time. So here's a little welcome piece from Ford Taylor himself. And he really is as cool in person as he is on this video. For me, a little bit cooler in person. Really down to earth.
Hello, I'm Ford Taylor, and welcome to the TL On Demand Interactive Training Platform. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you feel that you have influence with at least one person in your life?
Answer, please.
Yes.
Of course.
I used to say my dog, but actually.
Yes? I think we can all agree that each of us has influence with at least one person in our lives. By pure definition, that makes us a leader at some level. History has shown us that great leaders never stop learning. We've found that most leaders have a desire to have a positive impact on the people and the communities in which they live. Many leaders have been taught how to manage people, yet may have never been taught or given the practical tools of how to lead people and how to manage the processes, the systems, the procedures around them. By removing personal and process constraints, individuals can develop into the kind of leader they aspire to become and foster the kind of organization they aspire to lead. Our desire is to give you the tools and the ingredients and the behaviors needed to become that kind of leader, the leader you aspire to be. We call that transformational leaders. Leaders who can lead in a way that can have a positive impact in every sphere in which they have influence. During our time together here on TL On Demand, we will do our best to give the teaching, training, equipping, and tools that would empower you to go to another level of leadership in every area in which you lead. Again, thank you for taking this time to learn and work together to grow in your leadership and influence. We are honored and humbled that you would join us as we grow together on the journey to become transformational leaders. I'll see you in the next chapter.
Excellent. So as you can see, we're all leaders, right? It's not about if I'm a leader. No, we were born to lead, right? And we're all in leadership and also under leadership, right? Does everyone agree? And that it's very humbling that it is a two-sided coin. And when we honor both sides of the coin, it produces something that is very, very valuable, right? If I gave you a coin and it's missing one side of the coin, That's as fake as a $3 bill, right? You need to have, you need to develop both sides of the coin, and that's what this training provides. It's an incredible training. It goes, if you go looking through your packet, does everyone have a packet?
Yep.
Okay. John Beater did a fantastic job making this cover page. Removing constraints, equipping leaders, empowering people. I would love for you guys to write down right now, what do you want to get out of this training in the next hour? If you can choose one of these three or pick out something that you want to do, you want to get out of it, maybe a question that you've been intrigued about leadership, or maybe, and I know I'm in the room of legends, okay? I'm not going to insult you guys, all right? We're actually not even going to, we're going to skip over a lot of the foundational stuff, and we're going to dive in the middle of the training, because again, this is really just an introduction. This is not really the training. But one of the things that I would love for you guys to write down right now, and we'll discuss later, maybe even during lunch, we can chat about it. What do you guys want to get out of this? What kind of leader do you want to become? What do you aspire to become? There's always another level. I know you're great. But what's the next level that you aspire to become as far as a leader? And what kind of leadership do you like to be under? You know, maybe give me one core value or one core character that you would love to see in the leadership that you're under. You know, what's the number one priority in a leader for you to submit under that authority, right? So if you look at the snapshot of what we're going to cover today, developing a social covenant, knowing your inner and outer cores, knowing your team compatibility, high-performing teams. So again, building a culture and team producing at the highest level of performance. Again, you have performance and then you have romance. What's the priority thing? Romance or performance? It's always hard for men to answer this question. Romance is number one priority. First love first. I know, right? We live in a culture that we think it's about doing, it's about performing, when in reality, without a clear connection, without a quality connection, it's hard to perform at your optimized rate, right? When then these two touch and agree, it produces something very, very fruitful, very multiplying, right? You really become the dominionaire, the honorable legend that we were designed to become. All right, so let's go ahead and flip the page, guys. So what we're gonna start with is the social covenant. What's cool about this, and I would love to find out, who has ever used a social covenant and a friendship, a business partnership, a marriage, right? Everybody's entered into some type of social covenant, right? Can anyone share a little bit on how the social covenant or marital covenant or any covenant that you've entered into has helped or challenged you, please?
At Go-To Nations.
Go-To Nations, okay.
We have, Dr. Jerry took us through a values training over many months, actually. As it kind of crystallized and came together who we are, what we're about, what are our foundational values. And then they wrote up a beautiful, artistically encapsulated presentation of the covenant, and every headquarters staff member has signed that, and it hangs in the main entry to headquarters.
How did that help the culture?
I think it increased our awareness of what the values we all shared, doubled down on the fact that we all share them, and that's the purpose of our coming together to execute on the mission that we have. But it extended the accountability.
Absolutely.
So that we recognize that it's not just that person's direct report, or that we all hold each other accountable in a collective way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else has ever signed or honored a social covenant at any?
30 years ago, I committed to love and cherish and sickness and health. And, back when I was stupid and didn't know what I was getting into. Like most parents, you get into it, you go, yeah, I'll agree with that. Like signing off on your Apple's new update or whatever. You don't know what you're signing, but
you want the benefits, right?
Because you're going to be held to it, right? You want the benefits, and you're going to be held to that standard. But over time, later on, as you begin to look through that stuff, and you go, okay, what did I commit to, and the standard that it's holding me to? Just like in the same way that when I committed to follow Christ, there's a standard that I get placed above me that I don't think I have any idea, and God goes, I know what I've gotten you into. And down the road, you'll have a better idea, and then you'll be able to look back and go, this was good for me all along the way. So I think obviously those are two big big contracts that I've entered into over time with two key important people in my life.
Yeah.
Dan, I see you have something.
You know, I was thinking, the largest covenant I've ever entered into was the United States Army.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I said, the largest covenant I've ever entered into was the United States Army.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
That's a good one,
It
yeah.
was a huge one. And
Yeah.
I sometimes see these shows on the SEALs,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
and there was an interesting story a commander gave out in Texas that one night in their training, it was unbelievably cold, and you may have heard this, but they stuck them all down into mud up to their head,
Mm.
and with the water around them, and they were freezing. And they started harassing them, saying, "You can go home. If you go home now, you can get out of this stuff. You'll be warm,
Right,
they'll
yeah,
feed
right.
you and everything."
Yeah.
And so, in the course of screaming and hollering and degrading them and telling them they could leave, one guy started singing, and the rest of them joined him. And now think about that.
Yeah.
And the more they sang, the closer they felt.
Mm.
Nobody went home that night.
Yeah.
They all survived it. And the commander, the attack officers, whatever you want to call them, were mad at them about singing, but they couldn't stop them.
Awesome.
And you
Wow.
think about
That's great.
the power of that you hear someone and you trust someone because they're still there.
Come on.
And all of a sudden, you know, you don't listen to the opposition.
Come on. It's
Well,
not as loud.
Wow, that is a powerful statement.
Powerful.
That is a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was probably, I think that was larger than the marriage, actually. I think Linda did the marriage thing, and I just never argued with her.
You just touched and agreed.
He clicked accept.
Listen, that's how relational works. You touch and agree, you align yourself, and then things flow that way, right? So if you look at, notice on this page, there's these two questions. It says, when we're together, how do we want to treat each other? This is what the social covenant provides, a framework, right? It provides a pathway, right? A success syllabus almost, right? Almost a prosperity blueprint. And then the second part of the covenant that it provides, assuming we agree on how we treat each other, what process will we follow, and how will we handle the situation if one of us fails to follow the behavior we agreed upon? Now that is amazing, because a covenant, it is only as strong as its accountability process, right? And one thing that you were saying earlier is without there being some type of clarity or consequence, then it's not really a covenant, right? It's a joke, right? It's not real, right? Until there's something in position understanding 1 + 1 = 2, but if you're saying it's 5, we need to sit down and we need to go ahead and figure out a strategy on how can we get it back to 2, right? We need to get back in one accord, right? So if you notice this too, it says conflict plus resolution equals unity and engagement. Conflict is not bad. Neglected conflict that festers, that can become very, very bad. But facing and fixing the facts with the truth, that is what actually will bring a deeper bond. Problems and situations, surface level, like Dan was just saying, the mud and the cold and the surface level uncomfortableness, that was real. Those facts were accurate. But there was a deeper connection. That deeper connection, it brought them a bond, or they saw a higher reasoning or higher purpose. They saw the bigger picture. They could see past their little 5 senses feelings and said, hey, no, this is what I've committed to. These are my brothers. We suffer together, we reign together. Who else said that? If we suffer together, we reign together. Who said that? Our Creator. Our Christ said that, right? There's a different type of bond that you have where we're eating ice cream and dancing all day versus we're in the mud and they're spraying water in our face and we're freezing and we're suffering together. There's a deeper bond when you can overcome something, right? Mm-hmm. And the Bible calls us more than conquerors because we overcome with love. You know,
I think Scripture says that Christ was perfected through his suffering. I
Amen.
mean, how do you beat that state?
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
humbling, very, very humbling. All right, so we're going to flip this page here. Let's go around the room and let's read this covenant. I think it's going to just bring a little bit of clarity on an example of a covenant. I recommend your team uses something similar in your handbook or your employee handbook. Has anyone ever used one in corporate setting? Go to Nations, right?
Yeah.
Right. How about a secular setting? No, no one. We've done this training before, and several people have, and it's helped them tremendously to provide people grace and truth, right? Because it shows you where people really are. If you put this in front of somebody, it'll show you. It sets the thermostat. It sets the temperature, and it shows you where the thermometers are. Like, oh, that's too cold, or that's too hot, or this is something I cannot do, or this is something I want to do, but I'm going to need your help to help me do it. Right? It will expose where your employees or your potential employees are in their heart level, and if they will align with the culture of what you're trying to establish with your company. Coca-Cola does a fantastic job with this. Chick-fil-A does a fantastic job with this. Their turnover is less because they have a clear focal point. They have a mark. They have a standard. And it exposes where everyone is and what needs to be pruned and what needs to be empowered, right? Okay, so we're going to go around the room. We're going to everybody read a paragraph each. If you could start, Tom.
Sure. As members, we established this social covenant and agreed that when we are together, we will treat each other with respect, honesty, encouragement, kindness, friendship, forgiveness, dignity, patience, mercy, trust, empathy, tact, love, value, grace, truth, integrity, and confidentiality, and listen and not gossip. In addition, we will be non-judgmental, accountable, flexible, courteous, committed, productive, ethical, open, slow to anger, supportive, transparent, clear, and truthful. If we talk to another member who is not part of the problem or the solution about something concerning a third-party team member, we have 48 hours to bring that conversation to the attention of the third-party member.
Which eliminates gossip. You read the next paragraph?
You want me to read the whole thing or just part of the section?
You can just, wherever you feel fine. We're just going to go around the room.
Okay,
When you stop, your partner will go next.
got it. The effectiveness of the social covenant rests on the extent to which everyone works towards its desired end. All members must be willing to be held accountable for themselves. Team members must be willing to hold each other accountable as well. Assuming we agree on how to treat each other, what should we do if one of us does not follow the behavior we agree on?
Assess the situation, or number one, assess the situation and go to the person one-on-one. The steps to take when you go to someone are the following. A, go in love or kindness. I care more about you than what you think of me. B, go in humility. I could be wrong. C, with pre-forgiveness, worked out internally before meeting. D, with 100% truth. The truth and the facts on that situation. We agree to go to the other person with good intentions and the desire to understand them.
Me. Number two, next step. If the situation is not resolved, then we will bring in one or two others who will be a witness to the words that are spoken. 3, next step. If the situation is not resolved, we mutually agree to bring it to the team. And number 4, if no resolution takes place, then we agree to some sort of separation. It is our intent that every issue be resolved by step 1 and no further action will be needed.
Do you guys ever read this before somewhere in the Bible? This
Yeah.
process?
Yeah, Jesus did.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, if you want to read the...
Dan, did you pass?
Yeah.
Okay. We recognize we are imperfect. It's interesting, I get that chapter. If we fail to live up to the agreement, we will take the initiative to apply the 6-step apology. Number 1, acknowledge what we did by stating the offense. I did it. Number 2, admit that we are wrong. I was wrong. 3, say that we are sorry. I am sorry. 4, ask, will you forgive me? Or if and when you can, will you forgive me? Wait for the answer. Ask the person or group. Number 5, will you hold me accountable? I give you permission to hold me accountable from now on. Number 6, ask, is there anything else?
By signing this covenant, we are committing to abide by and be held accountable to the behaviors that we as a team or organization believe demonstrate the type of culture and environment that will foster the best personal and professional development and success.
Guys, I need you guys to tell me, what did you get out of this? What would you add or delete?
What about it, Harry? What do you think?
No, I mean, it's, as I'm reading this, you know, the scripture passages are coming to my mind. So it says, go in love and kindness, but worth bondservant must not be quarrelsome, but patient when wrong, kind to all, able to teach with gentleness, correcting those who are in opposition. It's 2 Timothy 2. Also in that same vein, go in humility, with pre-forgiveness worked out internally before me. That's Matthew 7, so that the log is out of my eye, that I'm not hindered from helping them get the splinter out of their own eye. And then obviously as they roll into the next step, Jesus' example of how you go and resolve issues. We've done this with our kids at home so that if we have peer-to-peer age kids, they're to resolve things with one another. If that's not successful, they're to go get another member of their age group and try to resolve that. If that's not successful, they go get an older sibling to come, and if that's not successful, then they come and involve parents, teaching them to resolve some of that conflict themselves.
Brilliant.
So it's like, but most of the time you don't have, you know, a dozen people involved in that, so we're fortunate that way, but.
That was the reason, right?
It seems to be the case. But that's, yeah, very, very biblically sound.
You know, I think that's why this has value. You sense righteousness in it.
Yeah, right.
And that's the desire of the heart, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. What would you guys add or delete?
I think your term, you know, the Psalms often speak of the beauty, and the worship in the Psalms is the declaration of God's holiness and righteousness. When you look at this, you think this is beautiful, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And the practical side of it, its effectiveness is contingent on accountability. And practicing integrity is not only something that will strengthen your integrity, but people that practice integrity, they don't have a problem with being tested or being examined, right? That's, you know, they don't mind being questioned. That's why our Creator says, ask, right? He's secure and mature. He said, reason with me, communicate with me. He's secure and mature, so we can ask, seek, and knock on His heart. And the only thing you're going to find in there, the deeper you go in, is goodness and mercy. It's only going to get sweeter, you know. And so it's beautiful that this provides, again, such a practical and spiritual insight, right? Application and insight. If you guys flip the page, we're going to go ahead and answer. Yes, John.
Yeah, to me, it blows me away. The first time I heard this from Ford Taylor, I took a little class online through Honest Hillman. Ford was doing this, and that's been 8 or 9 months ago. But the point is that I was blown away where he said that I will not go into a company. First of all, he built a company up to $300 million. He had venture capital people got involved with it and everything else. And then they started wanting him to buy other companies they would put money into and turn them around and that kind of stuff. And he said, and then he started doing consulting, okay, with companies. And he said, look, I will not come in with the CEO. He told him, I will not come in unless you allow me to share the social covenant together with everyone. Okay, all your key staff, okay? Because if you will not allow me to do this and allow me to use this as a tool, okay, I will not come and work with you or help you turn around your company, all right? And I'm saying, wow, that is gutsy. You know,
Is this the actual one he uses?
Yeah, this is it.
This is
This is
it.
it. This is one out of, and they, you know, obviously this came out of the workshop, you know what I mean? But this is what he uses. And I've never, in all my years of working with CEOs and entrepreneurs and companies and corporations and all that kind of stuff, I've never seen anybody do this kind of a gutsy thing before. You know what I mean? Because, you know, you got a variety of people that are believers or non-believers or egotistical or or arrogant or whatever it may be, and here you got this guy coming in to do this, with them. Wow, you know what I mean? That means the door is open,
Mhm.
Be vulnerable, be teachable, be open, humility, kindness, love, peace, joy, the gospel.
It humbles everyone. No one's exempt. I mean,
Right.
I read this, it unnaturally humbles me. Like, now my intelligence, my capability, my gifts, my talents, this is fruit of the Spirit.
You know, I certainly know people who would be offended by this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you go into a large company and you're going to, in a sense, introduce and in truth impose this on them. I can see a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder, in his world of experiences, a story about his failures. You couldn't implement it because the majority went that way, a little bit like we vote. But anyway, because we're very unique here. I mean, the Spirit of God is something we desire.
Right.
So this echoes that.
Yeah.
But I can sure see people who would.
Yeah, would be resistant to it, yeah. Well, this is the way I work. If you want me, great. If you don't, that's the way it is, okay.
But just in the same way as the key in going in humility to somebody, I tell my daughters in preparation for their future with their husbands is to be like their mother. When she is most effective with me, she's following 1 Peter 3 that by her gentle and quiet behavior, she wins me without a word. Then the Holy Spirit is free to be the only speaking voice because he will wear me flat out. And so if someone comes with humility, with the idea, you know what, and I might be wrong about this, but because a lot of times we go there to try to resolve something and we're like, I'm right about this and I'm looking to get this resolved. We're doing a book at work called The Calvary Road, and it talks about how nobody ever stumbled over somebody else's sin. They stumbled over their own sin. And so my offense to whatever it is that you're doing is the reason I tripped, not what you're doing. And so if we have that out of the way and we're able to go in humility, then we have that responsibility of going, I was supposed to do this, and I love this statement that John Quincy Adams made relative to this fight he had against slavery. 80% of the Congress was for slavery and 20% were abolitionists. And he fought it, they tried to censure him, and they did everything. And then finally the tide turned, he influenced so many people, and somebody once asked him, how did you not give up? And he said, because duty is mine, results is God's. And so our responsibility is just to go in those moments and then leave it at the humility of going to somebody, because that's where I am with my son-in-law. I've gone and laid that humility there. Now it's up to God. And some people, I totally agree with Dan. I think you bring this the way it should, they fight and kick and scream every possible way they can, because now they're not just wrestling against you or what other people might think, but now their relationship with God may be hindered, because you go to 1 John and he goes, if you say you love God and you hate your brother, you're a liar. Because nobody ever loved God who hasn't seen and hate his brother who has seen. So they're now in conflict in so many different areas, which is kind of how God turns the screws on you to kind of force you to come to resolution, and hopefully that comes to it.
I want to change it. I want to challenge that thinking. Innately, all humans crave to be honored by other people that serve them in humility, integrity, maturity. Innate.
I totally agree with you, except what he's talking about, I believe, is people's perception. They read this and they know the source.
Right.
They will intuit the source, and they're resistant to the source without really evaluating the content.
Right.
And so the pushback comes from fear of answering to that other authority you were talking about.
Sure. So what I agree with what both of you guys are saying. I notice a pattern, whether I'm doing a training at a university, or whether I'm doing it at a church, or whether I'm doing it at a HUD housing organization or a drug rehab. The common denominator, everyone's craving love. Love is grace and truth. Innate. I go to the core. Because if I go to your head, you're right. The struggle is in our head. There is no struggle in the spirit, and there is no struggle in the flesh. Flesh wants to do dirt. Flesh is wrapped in dirt. It lives on dirt, surrounded by people making dirty decisions. So Sandra's flesh wants to do dumb, okay? There's no struggle there. There's no struggle in my spirit. My spirit is ready and willing to do the will of God. So I meet people there. I meet them with love, and love does something that no other force can do. It can turn an enemy into a friend. I think what happens is we're trying to take things to people logic, and there's war in logic. Logic has a battle between the spirit and the flesh, right? This battle, this challenges me. But I think if we approach it in a way, in a deeper level, where we go straight to the core value and say, hey, let me show you the benefits of this core value and how it's gonna not only bring more to the bottom line of your household, people are like, okay, well, I'm a little bit more open to it. And the beautiful thing is this does provide different testimonies on the resistance. But the resistance is there to build our resilience.
As biblically as everything else is based on this, it's going to fall within other guidelines, so that if you go to somebody and you reveal the issue to them and they react in a way, rebuke a wise man and he will love you.
Sure.
Rebuke a wise man, he will become wiser still.
Sure.
Rebuke a fool
Sure.
and you'll gain folly. Rebuke a scorner and you'll gain dishonor.
Sure.
And so in some of these scenarios, especially if you have people in your organization, when you go to them to try to bring resolution this way, they may be pieces that should not be a part of your organization.
We're going to get into that. The video actually breaks that down in testimonies. Yes, sir.
That was going to be one of my questions, if Mr. Taylor, if you had examples where there was pushback. Because I'm like looking at it and thinking of a situation that happened with our team this week where one guy who had an issue was actually sent
Kind of
on his own. And a new guy who was encountering another newer guy with an issue, same thing. And at the last minute got the boldness to go on his own. To deal with. He went the right way to get advice on how to handle it and then step forward. And I was really proud of him. And I was very uneasy with anyone going with him first, because it actually would have, I felt like, disrupted the process. But I wanted to honor the guy, the leaders that are under us that have been encouraging him along the way. But and I was thinking, like, that's what happened. I'm proud of him, and I would love to formalize that, like even at our orientation. And same thing, if it's the wrong guy, if we can't sit through an orientation, and if this is making you restless, hey, you just took me one step further in my interview process, because let's just finish our orientation with today would be your last day also. But I'm curious, like, to implement in an existing organization, what kind of pushback or questions or resistance you've gotten, or if Mr. Taylor shared any.
He shares so many different examples, major corporations, his family, his children, major pushback. People had to be pruned from the organization, from the tree, that particular branch, right? Because the vine is the most valuable thing. You have to protect the vine. You have to be willing to prune some branches so it can stay fruitful and multiplying, right? He goes into that.
That's some good examples of it.
Really great examples. We're not going to cover all of them, but he's very generous with stories on wins and losses and struggles. So I love the transparency in this. Okay, let's finish this last page and then we're going to go back to Ford Taylor's training. All right, how to approach others. Okay, let's see if you guys are paying attention. Go in what? Humility. Be open to being wrong. I may be wrong. Go in, number 2. Go in what? Pre-forgiveness. Forgive before you go. I have already forgiven what happened to you. I'm going to be honest with you, this concept wrecked my life. That's when I knew. That's when I knew, okay, this is some out of the world concepts here. Pre-forgiveness, I've never heard this word before, okay? To me, like, I want to assess the situation and then I'll let you know where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? To forgive. This is BC days, before Christ. And with Christ, I know I have to forgive, but let me first go through my process. But pre-forgiveness, this is a most high, above my limited little level of thinking and understanding. So the third one, it says, go in what? Care more about the other person than you care about yourself. I care more about you and our relationship than how you feel about me. What's the answer to that one? Go in what? Go in love.
Kindness.
Love is grace and truth. Christ said I'm love, right? And grace and truth came only through who? Jesus Christ. So we need to go in grace and truth, meaning don't just go with the law of truth. Make sure that grace and truth is there, because there may be deeper issues than the why they're late every day, right? And then the last one, go in what?
Truth.
Go in truth. Speak 100% of the truth, which is honesty, integrity, right? I will bring all of the truth and the facts. Now, look at the distinction between the truth and the facts. Truth is creator, establisher, facts, the established. You need both. When those two touch and agree, it births a new situation, all things new, new mercies, right? New wine, a new influence, right? So when you go in truth, and when the truth, the facts humble itself and touches and agrees with the truth, it produces something. So guys, if you look at this page right here, if you flip it,
Next page.
the next page, you can see where the lean outers are heading. They're the people that they're not 100% all in. The inner core people are the people that are like, look, John, you and I, man, if the ship goes down, we're going down together.
All right.
First one here, last one to leave, you know? These are the inner core people. They're 100% in. They're not just sacrificing lip service, okay? They're invested financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually. They're interceding. They're all in, okay?
Amen.
All aspects, all the time, at all costs. Then you have the core. The core are people that, they have the core values. They believe. But, you know, they have families, they have other callings, they have other purposes, right? They're still part of the core, but they're not 100% the practical side. They don't have to sacrifice everything, you know. Imagine like Jesus Christ is the inner core, and core is like the John the Beloved, right? He called himself John the Beloved or whatever. Or maybe even Jesus Christ and John Beloved is in the core. And then maybe the disciples is part of the lean inners, right? The lean inners are the people that they believe in the core values. They're leaning towards it, but they're not yet in the core. All right? The lean outers are the ones that are double-minded, double-hearted, double-tongued. It was like that lady. It's all about her, right? Me, myself, and I, right? I'm the best. I'm the MVP here. You guys can't do this without me. You should be grateful I'm here. Very self-centered, very self-seeking, right? Love is not self-seeking. So the lean outers, they're seeking self. And what happens is if you don't prune this tree on the outside, they will start to slowly influence the inside. They'll start to influence the lean inners. And now the lean inners will start becoming lean outers, right? That's why it's important that you have a focal point. You have a target. You have a standard. You have these core values. And these core values have to be at the most high standard where it humbles all of us, right? And it doesn't just make one person look bad and some people look good. No, all of us need to humble ourselves. All of us need to focus on the mark. All of us need to have the most high standard. And what happens is the lean outers will eventually expose where they are, and they'll either do what Judas did, right? All the disciples betrayed Jesus, right? But Judas and Peter was like a lean inner until he went to the upper room and got filled with the Spirit of God. And then he started being led by the Spirit of God. But before, Peter was like, started talking inside his mouth, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." That was the Holy Spirit. Then Peter would talk to the other side of his mouth and be like, "Hey, look, Moses is here. Let's build a tabernacle and worship these messy mortals," right? He would say crazy things. He would chop the guy's ear off because he was still kind of not 100% surrendered, right? He was not 100% submitted and committed, right? So the lean inners, none of these people are bad. I don't want you to think any of these people are bad. But I'm just showing you, based on the core values and the social covenant, it exposes where everyone is. So let's flip the page. Oh, before we flip the page, look what it says, remember. And we didn't watch it, but it says the good news is that it only takes 3 to 5% to change a culture. That's good news, right? That's how Jesus did it. The bad news is it only takes 3 to 5% to change a culture.
To destroy it.
Yeah. And every empire, every culture, every nation that has ever been destroyed, like the Roman Empire, how was it destroyed? All these major empires, they were destroyed from the inside out because they didn't know when to prune and where to prune. They refused to prune the lean outers and let Judas do what Judas does, which he ends up killing himself, right? He ends up following that spirit, the counterproductive culture of what the standard is, right? So what I love about this training is it brings up both insight of how to honor one another, and it also brings a practical walking out of, if this doesn't happen, to keep this effective, we need to honor and keep the main thing, the focal point. So the next video we're going to watch is going to tie these next 2 pages together, and I'm going to tie all 3 when we're done watching it, okay? Guys, what questions do you have in regards to, or statements you have into this right here? Have you guys ever experienced this? Can you relate to this and see where people fall in your church and your calling and your business and your home, right?
Yeah.
I have a little human in my
How about
house.
you, Robert?
What's that?
How about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, I obviously don't have on board hard employees. I deal with a lot of
You're an independent
outsourcing,
contractor.
but it's exactly the same principle, because there are those that are on board that, you know, are in that realm of what they want to do and passion and work with it. Then there's others that are like lean outers. You know, they kind of believe in it, but it's really me kind of stuff. And it's like, that is actually a deterrent of actually productivity and trying to get things done and meet a lot and service people. Even though their skill sets are incredible, it still becomes a problem as a whole. And it took me a while to understand that. So this is really enlightening.
I'm going to help
But
you
as soon
develop
as I
a solid
realized that,
foundation
I've been
of how to interact with others.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
And now, but as soon as I've been able to realize that, I've been able to deal with that issue.
Yes.
And it has resolved in improving my
Right.
business and myself as well. But also, what's interesting is the relationship that I have with that person.
Right.
I think that that's an opportunity there to be able to minister to that
Yes.
person, because they are open to that. They are born again Christians.
Sure.
It's just that they don't buy into it all the way, because, you know, they still have this me, self-centered kind of thing.
Right.
And they need to get over, and that's something they just need to get over that. So I've actually been working on that with them, whether they realize it or not. But yeah, yeah, I really relate to this.
That's good.
And what's amazing is that he goes into some of the videos and breaks down how, why, where, and when you need to handle.
This,
Yeah, each of the roles, right? Because all of them have their place and their time. And another vice counselor, council member yesterday said, what did he say? He said he makes it his business to fire a client at least once a year. He finds a client to fire. And he says it just relieves and produces more fruit by just firing a client, you know? And I'm like, wow, I never thought about it that way. But it's true. Not every client, you know, should be a client, unfortunately.
Because you're relating them to a bad attitude, hard to deal with.
It's cancer in the camp.
It's,
You got to
It's
prove
not
it.
just employees, it's independent contractors, it's customers, it's suppliers, others that you interact with are part of this inner circle or part of the core he's talking about in terms of what you manage or lead and that kind of thing.
Same thing's true in relationships. Sometimes you have to prune relationships so that you can grow. Sometimes it means establishing boundaries in place that you don't let people have access, that they may have a relational clearance that they shouldn't have in your life.
Right.
Where they come in and they create all kinds of drama and you need to push them back outside and establish a boundary there.
Yeah.
We had one year where we had one of our main suppliers took our biggest customer from us, volume-wise, and we did 400,000 gallons less volume the next year, but we made $100,000 more on it because we walked away from that entire segment, because we said, you know what, we're chasing all this dollar and the value that we felt like, wow, I'm a bigger distributor because I do more gallons. Well, on the backside of it, we don't pay our employees by volume, we pay them by profitability.
That's
And
good.
we reduced our insurance costs because we did less, we were transporting less product, we reduced our expenses, and it was a beautiful thing, so.
Quantity versus quality. Choose quality, right?
Yeah.
Today I said before you life and death. And it sometimes it seems like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna lose this. But sometimes that pruning and that losing produces something so much greater and healthier, more love, more joy, more peace. You know, I'm glad that God didn't say the kingdom of God is about money and Ferraris and time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad he said the kingdom of God is love, joy, peace, righteousness, right? Like, that's what, you can't buy that on Amazon. You can't Google that, you know, and just get it downloaded. Like, these things you only can get from a one-on-oneness with the Creator. Let's do these quizzes, and if you guys want to have a discussion between the questions, we can definitely share a little bit. True or false? The safety stage is where vision is cast and a social covenant is usually established. The safety stage. True or false? The safety stage is normally the first stage. True or false?
Sure.
True. Yes, it's true. Yes. it has to be safe for people to come into your company. It has to be safe for them to be transparent. That's why you want to share the vision. You want to do the clarity on the social covenant. True or false? Each stage is distinct and separate from others. You must master one before the next one begins. False. Absolutely. It's a continuum, guys. Listen, thank goodness we're not designed to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. We can rest in Him who is perfect, right? That's the beautiful thing, is that this continuum is a process, and you give grace. That's why it's called grace and truth. It's not just the law. It's not just a standard, but it's grace and truth, right? So, what questions do you guys have, or what did you guys get from the video that he was saying? I know that it dove into the results of what he trained, and you guys didn't get the actual training, but he takes it baby steps, baby bites, and explains all of these, and he defines all of them. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer for you in regards to this, or are you guys ready to watch the next video?
We need to answer questions.
You have any questions?
What are your thoughts, Scott? Give us some feedback on this.
I mean, with the last one, it all sounds great, but it's a 50,000 foot view, so it doesn't.
Land.
The wheels aren't on the ground yet, so I don't actually have a lot. It sounds great, it's neat.
Okay.
It's still theoretical. I'm
Okay.
a guy that's got to get the nuts and bolts before
All right, okay.
it actually generates questions
Okay.
and content.
All right.
So
Paul, you feel the same way, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you take the lesson before, and it's easy to start to break down your team, lean in or just lead out. Where are we? And I mean, we're going to deal with some of those issues this afternoon and celebrate one that's transitioned and celebrate one that's going to be transitioning.
Right.
Ultimately, so that's, you know what I mean. That's easy because it's just easier to apply.
Right.
We suck at the theoretical and so we need help with the that's
Sure.
it's a big challenge for both of us, to be fair.
No, and I appreciate the honesty, and it's true. Like we're skipping over so much of the grounded nuts and bolts of it, that I can understand why it's hard to ask a question when all of it is just in the air.
Plus, we don't know what's ahead, so how do we make a decision? Do you want the left or the one in front of you? I mean, the question is tough because there's a lot we don't know. I'm with you. I mean, I like what I'm hearing, but how do I make that a reality? And I think there's an awful lot of, particularly when I think about some of the characters we used to hire.
All right. So the next video is called High Performing Teams. So this is going to go a little bit into how all this ties together, from the social covenant to being relational. It's going to kind of wrap it up for you a little bit. And again, this is not to get you full. This is to get you hungry, guys. God satisfy those that hunger and thirst. I'm trying to entice you to want to really dive in and understand
Okay, so what
beauty of
is
this.
it that makes a stage 5 team or a high-performing team? What are those things that make that up? Well, number one is high individual performers, and number two is healthy relationships. Many times we as the leaders, we have people that aren't performing at a high level or healthy relationships. Now, many times that's our responsibility. So I want you to think back just for a moment around that Be Still model about teaching, training, and equipping. Do we really understand the difference? Do we understand that if we bring people in a room, and let's use an example, we want to teach them how to use an iPhone. And we bring them into a room and we give them a bunch of PowerPoints and a bunch of manuals on how to use it. Well, that's teaching. Well, training is we hand them the phone and they get to go through those manuals and actually practice while they're using it. That's training. Well, what would happen if we did all that and then we sent them back to work without a phone? They're not equipped to do it. And it's important to understand the difference in those three as we talk about this next chart. It's also important to understand the difference in delegating and empowering. Many times we as leaders, we delegate, but we call it empowerment. And if we empower before we've taught, trained, and equipped, we can get our staff in trouble. Now, once we delegate, that leads to empowerment. So there's nothing wrong with delegation. Let me give you an example. Let's assume I'm going to hire a new admin, and he or she comes to work on Monday morning. And they come in and I tell them one of their responsibilities is to handle my calendar. And I show them This Thursday, I've got 4 people coming in for lunch. They'll be here at 11:30. Bring in 3 pizzas, a meat lovers, a veggie lovers, a Diet Coke, and a Sprite, and a couple of salads with some ranch dressing. Okay, that is delegation. What does empowerment look like? Well, over the period of time, I've taught, trained, and equipped them on how to do my calendar. So let's turn the clock forward 90 days. On Monday morning, he or she comes into my office and they say, I noticed on your calendar you've got 4 people coming for lunch. Are there any special dietary needs? And I say no, and they say, your lunch will be here at 11:30. Now, that's what empowerment is. Now, what if they tap on the door, stick their head back in my office and say, oh, by the way, if you had put on your calendar no special dietary needs, I wouldn't have had to bother you. Now, see, that's what relationship is. But then now they're training me because that relationship is so good. So what does it look like to have a high-performing team? It's high individual performance and healthy relationships. Now, the problem with building these teams is something that we call the trust continuum. Now, we all live on the trust continuum somewhere. And on one end of the trust continuum, we have people that have very low or no trust until we give them a reason to trust us. On the other end of the continuum, we have people who have high or maybe even 100% trust until we give them a reason not to. And so what happens is you'll see how this graphic, how this trust continuum lays across high-performing team. And you'll notice you can't even get up into the quadrant of healthy relationships and high performance until some level of trust is built. If you have low trust, you have low performance, low relationships. High trust, you at least have high relationships, and if we've done a good job training and equipping and putting the people in the right place, we also have high individual performance. So I'm going to suggest to you now that you have that graph right there in front of you, that you imagine yourself on your team. And I want you to put your initials where you see yourself on that graph. Just put your initials there quickly. It won't take long. And once you put your initials there, as you've imagined the team that you're talking about, it could be your family, your work team, a sports team.
Are you a high performer?
Whatever team you
or are you
imagine,
really great at
I want you then
relationships?
to put their initials
Put
in
yourself
whichever quadrant you see
Any
them
quadrant
in.
on
And
here.
then when you finish that, hit that continue button, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what happened based on where you put those people.
Stop.
You want me to stop here?
Yeah.
Okay.